This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Agun Erev Shabbos, as we prepare for Shabbos, Parshas Kedoshim, Shabbos Mevarchim. As we read the opening of this week's Parsha, we are struck by a very, very unusual expression. Pasuk says, Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Speak to the entire congregation of the Jewish people. Kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Everybody. And in fact, Rashi points out, Parsha zu nemra behakel. This Parsha was said by gathering every single last Jew. Now this is a very unique expression. Kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Usually it says, Daber el b'nei Yisrael. Speak to the Jewish people. Now, if Moshe Rabbeinu was giving a shiur to the Jewish people, you would assume most people would be there. And maybe you had one guy, he would walk out before the drasha, one guy went to make Kiddush. Fine, but in general, you would assume almost everybody would be there. But when it comes to Parshas Kedoshim, it was Behakel. It was Kol Adas B'nei Yisrael. Even the guy who usually sneaks out, he comes. Even the guy, everyone has to be there. What is so important about Parshas Kedoshim? That it's not good enough Daber El B'nei Yisrael, but it's Daber El Kol Adas B'nei Yisrael. When President Dwight Eisenhower met with the Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, so at one point the American president said like this. He said, it's very hard to be the president of 170 million people. Not easy. Very hard to be the president of 170 million people. Ben-Gurion responded, you think that's hard? It's a lot harder to be the prime minister of 2 million prime ministers. So there's something very important to what Ben-Gurion is saying. And that is, there's no such thing as a simple Jew. Even though people have a bumper sticker that says, I'm a Pashat Yid, ich bin a Pashat Yid. That's really not correct. That just means that a Jew should be humble, shouldn't seek honor. If someone insults you, you keep your mouth closed, you bite your lip, you don't respond. But when it comes to observance, when it comes to Shmiras HaMitzvahs, when it comes to learning Torah, when it comes to Kedusha, there's no such thing as, I'm just a simple Jew. Every Jew can achieve greatness. Every Jew is expected to achieve greatness. Now this concept of striving for greatness, usually when you're dealing with younger people, they're very attracted to this idea. Younger people are more ambitious. They have big goals in life. But as we get older, we're raising the kids and we're struggling to pay the rent and to pay the utility bills and to pay all the tuition. We start losing sight of the ambition of achieving greatness in Ruchnius. And we become drugged. We're drugged. We're drugged with a narcotic. And this narcotic is called complacency. And consciously or subconsciously, we make a decision to be what the Chazon Ish calls a Beinoni B'shita. That subconsciously we say to ourselves, what am I? I'm just average. I'm going to be mediocre. I'm just going to be regular. I am who I am. This is what time I get to davening. This is how I daven. This is how much I learn. And this is who I am. That is who I will always be. I'm good enough. I keep the halacha this much. I learn this much. I learn sometimes. I go to minyan sometimes. And that is good enough. The way I am, that is good enough. And the Torah says, don't sell yourself short. The Torah says, Kedoshim tiyu. Don't be mediocre. Don't be average. Don't be good enough. Be great. You have to strive to be a great Jew. You have to strive to be a Jew who keeps every sif in halacha. You have to strive to be a Jew who knows every blot Gemara and Shas. Who daven Shemona Esrei like the biggest Gadol Hadam. That is what we strive for. Remember what Ben-Gurion said. Almost everything else you could forget. But remember this one thing. We're all prime ministers. We're all Mamlechas Kohanim. We're not average. We're not Pashat. There's an amazing pasuk in Sefer Tehillim, Parak Pei Aleph. Gemara Brachos, Rav Matisyahu Solomon points this out in his Sefer Matnas Chaim. The Gemara Brachos says that normally when you daven, how should you daven? You say, Ribbon Shalom, I want to be a multi-billionaire. After all, you Ribbon Shalom, you have all the money at your disposal. I want to be like Trump. I want to own real estate all over the world. I want to have fancy cars. Can a person daven for that? After all, the Rebbe Shalom can give it to you. How should you ask? Rebbeinu Shalom, I want to, live it big. Why not? His name is Shakai. He has died, but he could give anything. Gemara says, no. You don't daven like that. Rashi says, Shahashoyel, Shoyel ke'ani ala Pesach. There's Rashi in Masechta Brachos, Daf Nun. When you ask like a poor man. She'enoi meirim roish lishol she'ela gedola. Right? A poor man knocks on the door. So they say, hey, you're a rich guy? I want $50,000 now. Chutzpah. You ask humbly. I have needs. Please, Rebbeinu, please help me a little bit. Try to make it a little easier. You don't ask the Rebbeinu Shalom with big hasagas. You ask for your needs. You ask for what's necessity. But the Gemara asks a question on that. Is that so? That when you ask, you should only ask humbly? But the Gemara says, the Pasuk says in Tehillim, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, I'm Hashem your God, Hamalcha me'eretz Mitzrayim, who raised you up from Mitzrayim, Harchev Picha, open your mouth wide, Va'amaleu, and I'll give you whatever you ask. So how could you say you should ask humbly, but the Pasuk says, open your mouth wide, ask for anything? Answers the Gemara, Hahu b'divrei Torah. That's by Ruchnius. By physical things, you ask humbly. Rebbeinu Shalom, please give me money, need to pay the bills, need to pay for my car insurance, my tuition, some money left over, humbly. But that's when it comes to physical things. Physical things you ask like an ani. But when it comes to Ruchnius, don't stop. Don't be stingy. Be arrogant. Ask for the world. Say, Ribono Shel Olam, I want to know Bavli, Yushalmi, Rashi, Tosfos, the Rush, everything. Marsha, Maram Shif. I want to know Shulchan Aruch, all the nice Kelim, Shach and Taz with the Mishnah Brura. I want to know Tanakh, Rashi, Ibn Ezra, Radak, and the Malbim also. I want to know Chumash, Rashi, Ramban, Sfarno, Ibn Ezra, all the Chasam Sofer, Madur Rishon, Madur Shniya, Madur Shlishis, everything, all the Shas of Tshuva Svarim. But it's arrogant. No, not by Ruchnius. By Ruchnius, open your mouth wide. So people say, me? I'm going to ask Rebbeinu Shalom that I should become a big Talmid Chacham? I could barely get out of bed in the morning. I'm lucky if I open a sefer once a day. And I'm going to ask Rebbeinu Shalom. It's so arrogant. It's like a fantasy. It's a dream. It's not a real thing. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, no, you're making a mistake. Remember in Mitzrayim? You weren't just opening a sefer once a day. You were Mem Teshari Tumah. Had you been in Mitzrayim for a moment longer, you would have fallen to the point where even the Rebbeinu Shalom could not have saved you from that spiritual mess. And I didn't take you out of Mitzrayim. I raised you up higher, 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 till not that you knew Shas. You had such high levels of Ruach HaKodesh. You were on a higher level than the Vilna Gaon. You were on a higher level than Rashi. At Kabbalas HaTorah, you were Royan Es HaKodesh. You're like Moshe Rabbeinu. Zeh Keli V'Anveo, you said. How did that happen? Because you davened to me. You cried out. And when you daven for Ruchnius, nothing is impossible. It doesn't say, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha Hamoitziacha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you out. Hamalcha, I elevated you. So therefore, when it comes to Ruchnius, Harchev Picha, don't just say Ribono Shel Olam. Help me understand the few lines Gemara. You say Ribono Shel Olam. I want to know Kol HaTorah Kula. I want to daven like the biggest tzaddik. I want to be the biggest Baal Chesed. I want to do mitzvahs all day long. Don't be stingy when it comes to Ruchnius. Anoichi Hashem Elokecha Hamalcha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Open your mouth wide. Harchev Picha. Says Rav Yaakov Naiman, great mashgiach, he wrote the Sefer Darkei Musar. By the nations of the world, by the other religions of the world, Kedusha, sanctity, holiness, is only for the clergy, the priest, the clergyman. It's relegated to the leaders. Most people cannot ever anticipate or hope for Kedusha. They don't even try. It's not for them. Comes Ribono Shel Olam, Parshas Kedoshim, and Hashem says, this is different than every other Parsha. Every other Parsha, Daber el Bnei Yisrael. But this Parsha, Daber el Kol Adas Bnei Yisrael. Make sure every Yid that comes into the Shiur today. Make sure even the guy who's all in the Kiddush club, he also, bring him in. The guy who leaves before the drasha, bring him in. This is something not just for rabbis, not for Rosh Yeshiva, not for tzaddikim. Kedusha is for Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael, every last Yid. The Rebbeinu Shalom, so to speak, picks up the Yid by the lapel. He says, wake up! Get out of your slumber! You're drugged. You think you're a Pasha to Yid, you're not. Wake up. The Rebbeinu Shalom picks up the Yid. He shakes him out of his complacency. He says, Rabbi Yid, Kedoshim Tiyu. Don't settle for mediocrity. Don't settle to be an average Jew. Don't settle to be a Pasha to Yid. Kedoshim Tiyu. You can, and with the help of the Rebbeinu Shalom, you will achieve Kedusha and Shleimus. Hashem v'yaskal tzedek. Her v'yameinu. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.